What's going on, YouTube? What's going on, friends? Dom from the Switch Den here. Now, today, guys, we're going to be talking about 5 games that need to be ported to the Nintendo Switch. And there's going to be like a running theme on the games that we picked for the first batch of games that need to come to the Nintendo Switch. Now, there's going to be more than one video because there's a lot of games that I think would deeply benefit from coming to the Nintendo Switch, and I think that they would benefit just from a wider audience and sales perspective. Now, the Nintendo Switch is no stranger to a bunch of games that have already made their way to the Switch and have had a lot of success in doing so. There are certain games that actually, even now, when you think about them, they're available on other platforms, but when you think of the game, you think of the Nintendo Switch. And the games that I kind of want to highlight, and we won't spend too much time, are games like the Untitled Goose Game. Now, when you think about Untitled Goose Game, you think of the Nintendo Switch, or at least I know for sure I did, because that's where I played it on, and I think it's really the best experience on the Nintendo Switch. Now, there's other games that exist that are even better, and the best definitive version is actually on the Nintendo Switch, just like Dragon Quest XI. Now, this game was a game that was previously available on the PlayStation 4, but when it found its way over to the Nintendo Switch, it found a home, and it ended up being the definitive version because the best music, the best orchestral work, and just the game overall felt home on the Nintendo Switch. Other games that kind of hit me in the heartstrings were games like Catherine Full Body, where I played through this game 5 different times and I got 5 different endings. Now, there's a bunch of endings. I think there's like 12 or 14 endings, but I got 5 different endings because I was able to play this in handheld mode. And again, a game that really benefited from the Nintendo Switch. Another game, real quick, is Digimon Cyber Sleuth, a game that was meant to be played in handheld because it came out on Vita. And ultimately, there's other games that maybe didn't do so well, but they're still being updated, like Outer Worlds, which, fantastic game. Not the best on the Nintendo Switch, but you know what I mean? Like, Obsidian's working on getting it updated for the Switch, so it should be better very soon. Now, with all that said, the one thing I need you guys to do is become a friend and make sure you guys join the Switch Den by hitting subscribe. So let's now talk about the games that actually need to make their way over to the Nintendo Switch, and you're going to be surprised with some of them because they may be already available on other Nintendo platforms, but they're just not on the Switch yet. So the first one that I really want to talk about and highlight here is 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. So this is actually a new game by Vanillaware and published by Atlus over here in the West, and 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim is one of the best games that I have played all year long. It's basically like if you did really awesome visual novel storytelling and you had RTS elements and anime and all kinds of stuff. You kind of mashed them into a perfect game. This game was amazing. 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim really got those kind of juices flowing upstairs, and it just really hit all the strings that it was supposed to. And it was such a great game. And there's nothing better than I can think of than it being on the Nintendo Switch. I think it'll be home on Nintendo's portable console. The next game that I think that needs to come over to the Nintendo Switch, and there's a couple of games, and I may talk about the next one on another video, but that is Persona 3 FES. Now, I think any of the Personas would be amazing on the Nintendo Switch, but specifically, I think FES would be an easy port over to the Nintendo Switch, and it really has never left the PlayStation 2. Now, they did have PlayStation or Persona 3 Portable on the PlayStation Portable system on the PSP, but that was actually a little bit different of a game. So I think that this game, much like Golden recently that came over to the PC, could easily be ported over to the Switch, and Atlus would make hand over fist. The next game it's another Atlus game, and that is Persona 5 or Persona 5 Royal. Now, if you've been around the internet, people have been clamoring for this game to come over to the Nintendo Switch. And the reason why is not only do they have over 50 million Nintendo Switches out in the wild, so that's a whole new sub-base that could be introduced to Persona, but for crazy fans like me who would rebuy it again for God knows how many times, it's perfect to be able to play handheld and on the go. This game is well over north of 100 hours. My first playthrough ever was 120. My next playthrough was 140. I just put another 130 into Persona 5 Royal, and I would do it all over again if it came to the Nintendo Switch. Not only do I want it for Nintendo fans, not only do I want it for people who would be new to the platform, but I also want it for us diehards who would just love to have this on the Nintendo Switch. And the thing about this game too is it is based on the engine that Catherine is used, so we know it can run on the Nintendo Switch with no problem. Atlus, get your stuff together. We, they, me, we all want it. Let's make it happen. The next game on the list is a awesome JRPG, one of the best JRPG experiences that you probably have never played that was on the Nintendo 3DS. And that game here is Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology. Now, Radiant Historia actually has a pretty large history, but Radiant Historia was actually originally on the Nintendo DS. Then in 2017, towards the tail end of the life of the Nintendo 3DS, Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology, which was an updated, basically kind of like remake version of that game, was put on the Nintendo 3DS, and they added voice acting, additional story, and all kinds of stuff. And this game was one of the best JRPGs I've ever played. I think it's in top 20 of the JRPGs ever that I've ever played. But it was also just an amazing, amazing game. And I think this is now relegated to be stuck to the Nintendo 3DS. But it could easily come over to the Nintendo Switch. Some slight updates, some slight remakes, some slight kind of like up-resing to 1080p, or even 720p, docked handheld would be okay. And I think this would introduce it to a bunch of new people that have just never played it, because guess what? In 2017, you were playing the Breath of the Wild, you were playing Mario Odyssey, and you were getting your brand new shiny Switch. You had already thrown away your Nintendo 3DS, and you weren't even thinking about this anymore. But that is exactly why it needs to come over to the Nintendo Switch. If you haven't realized or seen this game before, if you haven't realized how amazing it is, go look it up, go look up YouTube stuff, go look up this game more, and you can see gameplay. And if you're a JRPG fan, you gotta play this game. All right, the fifth and final game on the list, guys, is a game that was already over to the Wii U. Now, you might ask, like, Dom, hey, all the games on the Wii U, the good ones, they're all over on the Switch now, playing. I got the Donkey Kongs, I got the Mario Karts, I got all of it. Well, there's one more game that hasn't made its way over, and that is Xenoblade Chronicles X. Arguably, to me, the best Xenoblade game. Yes, I just played Xenoblade Definitive Edition. I thought it was very okay. I played Xenoblade 2. Amazing. I love Xenoblade 2. Torna, the DLC, I thought was okay, but Xenoblade 2 I thought was awesome. Xenoblade Chronicles X is a game I played on the Wii U a few years ago, and when I picked it up, I did it just kind of on a whim. I really didn't have any prior history with the Xenoblade series, so this was kind of like my first stop into Xenoblade. I know of its existence, but I never really played it. And when I did, I was greeted to initially a amazing 30-hour story that was around life on another planet and mechs. And then at around the 35 hours, you're given a mech, and your story just opens up, and it's just a whole brand new story. This is one of the most beautiful games that is on the Wii U. It is by the same people who helped make Zelda Breath of the Wild, so immediately you know it's going to be quality. And honestly, if you just put this game, just copy-pasted it over to the Switch, people would be blown away about the kind of game that they never knew that they could be able to play on the Nintendo Switch. This game needs to come over to the Nintendo Switch like yesterday. So I don't know what Nintendo is doing, but they need to be able to move this one over ASAP. It would at minimum sell 1 billion copies. Guys, that has been the first video on the top 5 games that need to come over to the Nintendo Switch. Down in the comments below, let me know what games you think need to come to the Switch like yesterday. And of course, make sure you guys click on the video right now, because YouTube says that's best for you. And the one right next to it, guys, well, that is the top 5 spooky games that you should be playing around Halloween next week, or whenever you watch this video. Just go play some horror games. Why not, right? Guys, don't forget to become a friend, join the Switch Den. We'll catch you on the next video. Peace.